Yo, what's up guys? Mike here, coming at you from the mushroom farm. Great video for you guys tonight. So tonight I'm going to do a subscriber suggested video, and we're going to talk about the topic of second flushes a little bit, alright? So we're going to talk about like how to get your second flush, what kind of yields you can expect on a second flush, how long they take, all that good stuff. And I want to say, if you're new and you're just now tuning into this channel, my name's Mike. I'm a mushroom farmer. I've been farming gourmet mushrooms 9 years full time. Here's just a few clips and pictures of some of my recent grows and some of my harvests here on my farm. But I basically grow all my mushrooms here on my farm, and I sell them at farmers markets and to high-end restaurants. We're actually standing in one of my grow rooms right now here in the brand new mushroom farm that I built in Western Colorado. I'm doing daily uploads on this channel. We actually have over 200 videos, 250 videos of mushrooms and mushroom farming on this channel. So if you're into mushrooms and farming, make sure you click that subscribe button right now so you get more mushroom and farming videos like this in the future. But anyway, on to tonight's video. Like I said, we're going to cover the topic of second flushes, and this really pertains to like gourmet mushrooms or any mushroom that you might grow in like a bag or a tub or in vitro growing, anything like that. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. In this grow room right now, actually, we have Cordyceps militaris and some reishi mushrooms. I've been kind of showing you guys progress of this on the channel, and I'm going to hold up just a few of these just to show you guys, and then we'll get into the second flushes and talk about that. But I was like giving a little update on whatever kind of grow I got going on. But this is a Cordyceps militaris. This is a cool recipe too. This recipe is, I believe this one, I made all kinds of recipes in here. It's like 1 part soybean one part soybean meal and 4 parts rice. And then I also put in like couple tablespoons of malt extract. I've got the recipe written down in a notebook out there, and we'll go over that in detail. But this is one of my favorite ones, actually. I got another one. Here's another one right here with the exact same kind of recipe. If you guys can see in there, it is just giving these really nice, thick flushes of these mushrooms. So I'm really happy with how that's going. I talked about, too, the filter patches, how I think some of the filter patches are providing a little too much airflow, actually, in some of these. But they're doing great, actually. Everything's doing really good. I'm happy how everything's growing in here. Look at this. This is one. There you go. This is egg powder. Okay, so this is whole egg powder. And I've got some other recipes in here, too. I'm not going to grab them all right now. I'll show you guys a reishi, though. I'm sure somebody wants to see a reishi. But if you can look through there, you see those antlers? Oh, yeah, you guys can see them. There's antlers coming up in there right now. So these are doing great, though. I got lots of reishi bags growing in here. Now, as far as these cordyceps and these reishi mushrooms, these are mushrooms a lot of times you don't do second flushes on. I have seen some farmers and some guys take second harvests on cordyceps and things like that, but the yields just aren't that great. And I'll talk about that a little more in this video, even my kind of mentality on regular gourmet mushrooms. But you usually don't see it done too much on cordyceps. You don't see it done too much on a reishi mushroom either, to tell you the truth. So this is going to be, we're just going to kick this off talking about the gourmets. Let's just say, for instance, like this is a bag of lion's mane mushroom or an oyster mushroom, okay? So normally here on my farm, if I were to do a second flush, and I usually don't do second flushes on my gourmets either, and I'll tell you guys why I don't, okay? And this is just because I'm actually a farmer and I do this for my job. Now, if you're just a hobbyist or you're growing a few for your family or just some friends or something like that, or maybe just a couple for yourself, you can totally do some second flushes and take advantage of getting that second harvest, third harvest, maybe even a fourth harvest. But I'll explain why I don't do flushes here on my farm a little further in this video. But anyway, let's just assume we got a lion's mane or an oyster bag right here. And what I always do, let's just say we got the first harvest coming up. We pick that first mushroom, okay? Then we're waiting on number 2. We're waiting on that second harvest to come up. Is there anything special I do to my gourmet mushroom grow bags to initiate that second flush? That's a lot of what the questions are a lot of times, is do you do anything to initiate it and anything like that? And I'm going to say, honestly, I feel like there's a couple ways you can go about it, okay? The easiest way is just to let the block sit. You pick the mushroom, and then what you do is you're going to want to clean off any extra like old mushroom tissue or something on there. I pretty much like to make it where I have some clean sawdust exposed right there. And then the new mushroom will just emerge out of that new block of sawdust, okay? It might take 2-3 weeks or something like that before there's one to pick. And honestly, a lot of times you shouldn't really rush it. I'll just say some guys want to know if they should like dunk their block or anything like that, because that comes in the world of tubs with cocoa coir and vermiculite. A lot of guys do that kind of stuff, and cakes and different things. But for the context of this, a lot of times these Masters Mix blocks, they'll just contaminate on you. So I don't really suggest doing it. I just suggest picking the mushroom. Don't dunk your block or anything like that. Just let it sit on the shelf and let a new one emerge right out of that hole. Now, I will say, if you're kind of worried about the block drying out there for whatever reason or something like that, some people choose to put some tape over it, over that cut that was on there, and then you can turn the block over to the other side. You can make a whole nother hole and like initiate another fruiting on the other side. But that's totally up to you and like how you want to approach that. I don't really feel like there's like a right or a wrong way to go about that, but like it's your personal preference and just kind of style about how you want to do it. But I would not ever suggest dunking these Masters Mix blocks. You either just want to give it time, let it come out that initial hole you made, or else, like I said, tape that hole shut, cut a new one, and then let the pin set form and just let the new mushroom form up. But that's pretty much the best way I feel like you can go about it with Masters Mix. Now I want to talk about like bag tech, okay? Like in vitro growing, there's some mushrooms that guys like to do in vitro growing. And if you're doing bag tech, what I've done in the past, this is just where you let the mushrooms grow up inside the bag. I think most of you guys know what I'm talking about. What you'll do is let them grow up, cut the top of the bag off, pick your mushrooms. Then you can just use some clips, actually, just like I used here. Fold the top of that bag back over to kind of seal it and let your second flushes come back up in there. I've seen guys doing like in vitro growing with bag tech get like multiple flushes. Your first 2 flushes are always going to be your best, okay? And that's also with like your gourmets too. And that's kind of like why I personally don't take second harvest here on my farm when it comes to my gourmet mushrooms. The first flush is always like the big one, okay? And then the longer the block sits in here, it's just taking up space when I could put a brand new mushroom block in here and get another big harvest, okay? So for instance, let's just say we're talking oyster mushrooms and lion's mane, and we're averaging like 3 pounds on our first flush with those. Your second flush is typically about 50% of whatever your first flush was, okay? So you might only get like 1.5 pounds or like somewhere in between 1 and 2 pounds, but you won't be getting that big 3-pounder that you got on your first one there, okay? And now, like I said, just depending on like your scale of what you got going on of your operation, or if you're like a hobbyist grower or you're just doing a small grow for yourself, it might not be that big of a deal, you know? But if you got to clear all these blocks out of here so you can get brand new fresh ones in and then get a big harvest, to me, that's honestly the most important thing when it's like the farming season is in. It's the winter time right now, and that's why we're doing these medicinal mushrooms in here and getting ready basically for the next farmers market season. We'll be drying all these and selling these during the main part of the season. And we just got our first big snow today, man. I mean, it is a winter wonderland out there. We'll say that right now. There's freaking snow everywhere. So I'm standing here being nice and cozy today. It feels good. But anyway, that's why I don't do my second flushes on my gourmets when I'm actually farming. It just, for me, it consumes too much space, and I would much rather just get a fresh new block in here, get another big yield off it. Also, I'll say too, you do kind of risk contamination to a point when you keep old blocks in there. You'll just notice, like, the old blocks, boy, they'll get nasty. You'll get all kinds of, like, different molds on them and stuff like that. So if you bring in new blocks or mushrooms that might be sensitive to something like that, you may not have the best results then. I always like to keep the grow rooms as clean as I can, especially when I'm bringing in, like, big loads of mushroom bags in here, you know what I mean? I got a big crop I'm going to have coming off, or just orders for chefs, you know, something I know I have to meet a date, because that's just the thing. I feel like sometimes, like when guys try to do it at scale, you just have contamination problems with your second flushes, and a lot of times you're just trying, if you would just put in new blocks, you wouldn't even have that problem. So that's kind of like why I like to do it that way, you know, but you can do it whatever way you want, really, to tell you the truth. Like I said, for small scale cultivation, if you're just growing some for yourself, it is kind of cool to get like that second fruit to come off there, and then you got just something you can pick, and you didn't really have to work that hard for it. It was almost free, you know what I mean? So that is like one kind of cool factor about it. And now, like I said, as far as yield goes on your second flushes, you can pretty much always expect about half of what you got on your first flush. How many flushes can you go? I mean, that really just kind of depends on how good a care you're going to take of the block and how long you keep it. I sold a grow kit to a woman years ago. Actually, there was a couple people. There was like 2 people that come to my mind right now. And they told me they got like 6 flushes off these grow kits that I sold them. And I was just thinking, I'm like, dang, man, you guys must have been desperate to get those mushrooms. So, I mean, it's kind of up to you totally if you ever want to keep them around that long, you know what I mean? But me personally, I don't ever do anything like that. Another thing I want to add in here real quick, I want to talk about straw buckets in the second flushes, and I also want to talk about compost pile mushrooms and additional flushes too, because that's another couple ways you guys can get more mushrooms. First, just to talk about straw, just because when I first started mushroom cultivation, I started cultivating on straw. Like I said, now I mainly use all Masters mix, but when I was using straw, I would just let the bucket sit, and I would totally just take another flush. I would just let it sit, give it time, didn't do anything special. Over time, I will say that like the straw in the bucket, it like shrinks down, okay? And I'm even noticing that in some of these cordyceps trays, like how much they shrink. And you'll even notice that with your Masters mix blocks. Like over time, they just shrink, they get smaller. All that moisture's getting sucked up out of them for that first flush, you know? But yeah, that's just something you may struggle with trying to get multiple flushes out of them. And then maybe at a certain point, maybe then it may be beneficial to dunk them just to get them a little more hydrated if somebody wants to experiment. But a lot of times, like I said, with Masters mix, for sure, you're probably going to contaminate. With straw, I've never tried that, so I don't know what would happen. But if anyone wants to try it, like I said, give it a shot. Now, another thing I wanted to add in was just compost pile mushrooms, because whenever I get my first flush on my gourmet blocks, basically what I do is I just take the block outside, strip the bag, and then put all the blocks in a pile. A lot of times nowadays I'm busting them up, okay? In the past I've just let them sit there before and just kind of do whatever. If you just let them sit, a lot of times the mushrooms will come up out of the compost and they'll just grow another mushroom on there. And you can like pick compost pile mushrooms like all season long as it's like temperate outside. So that's like kind of a cool thing. Definitely is get some compost pile mushrooms, I will say, from time to time, if you don't want to keep old blocks in your grow room. That way you can just always keep fresh blocks coming in your grow room, and then you can just get some second flushes off your compost pile if you don't really need that many. But anyway, that was just a little bit on, like I said, straw and compost piles. But anyway, that's just a little bit of stuff on second flushes. Like I said, it's all about context, whether or not you want to do it on your farm or on your grow operation. Sometimes I feel like it's applicable, and then sometimes I feel like you should just stick to the first flush and get some new blocks in here. But anyway, guys, if you got any questions for me or any suggested videos or anything like that, just be sure to drop it down below in that comment section. I'll answer all your questions, and I might even make a video for you guys. But anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful and informative tonight. If you did, please drop this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's all I got for you on this one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.